Alright, we're going to start this video off with the sweat and tears effect. And we're just using glycerin to achieve the look of the sweat and the tears. And to apply that, you can use a sponge that you have at home with holes ripped into it for texture, or I'm actually using cut up fish filter because it's got the holes already in it. You just stipple that wherever you would sweat. You can put it on your neck and chest too. It does run though, so just be cautious of your clothes. If you want to do tears, you just dip a Q-tip in a little bit of the glycerin and it will just start to roll down your cheeks. As it warms up on your skin, it becomes a little bit more malleable. It's a very affordable product too, so it's really good for this effect. Alright, now if we're doing a little road rash effect, I'm just going to take that same fish filter sponge, because it's nice and firm, and I'm just going to dip that into some Cinema Secrets Stage Blood and just dragging that down. So you want to concentrate all the color on the top and just drag it down in a scrape pattern. And then I'm just going to take a blood brush, basically a brush that I would use for all of my fake blood, and I'm just going to add little dots where, say, rocks might have actually cut me and gone into the skin, so there would just be a little bit more blood there. And now I'm just going in with some Cinema Secrets black and brown dirt effects, and I'm just going to make it look like I fell in some dirt. Just kind of working that around. Same sort of pattern though, nice and streaky, so it looks like there's an actual like skid. And you can add a little bit of the same effect to your hand to make it look like you got hand road rash too. Alright, so now I'm going to show you some beat up knuckles. I'm going to achieve this effect today with the Krylon Body Illustrator Alcohol Palette and a ripped up sponge. And I'm just going to activate some of the blood tones with some 99% alcohol and just dip into that and just work that onto the knuckles, using different kind of reds to give it some more depth so it's not quite so obvious that it's makeup. And making sure that you're getting some red in between the knuckles too, because there would be some redness there as well. If you'd like to add some finer detail, you can just take a fine tipped artist brush and just add that in where you see fit. Maybe you can add sort of like little cut marks, things like that. And then once I'm happy with the effect of all of the painting that I've applied, I'm just going to take some blank sponge, spray that with some 99% alcohol, and just stipple that over the entire thing just to kind of blend in the redness and make it look like it's a little bit more irritated from within. Just kind of playing around with it until I'm happy, and you can also add more paints if you lose some of the effect if you've put too much alcohol on too. Alright, and now this is how I achieve my textured sponge, just like ripping out little holes of a square sponge. I'm just going to show you how to do some bruising with some cream paints. I'm using the Krylon Rubber Mask Grease Paints. And And I'm taking a nice dark red tone, that's our blood tone. I'm wiping all the colors off in between, taking some yellow if you're using a little bit, or achieving more of a bolder bruise, and some white so I can lighten up some of the colors. Taking a mix of the medium and dark red, just for some depth. And some green and yellow mixture. I've been working off of a picture that I found on the internet, which is really helpful if you're fresh to bruising, because you can kind of match all the colors you see in the picture to your paints and then recreate it from there. Makes it really easy. And then once you find that you've gotten all the colors that you'll need for your bruise recreation, you can start applying the colors. I'm applying my yellow first, and I'm just going to work in some of my other colors to that. I'm going to take a dark red blood tone now and start building up the bruise. You can put this kind of anywhere. It wouldn't really be a realistic bruise on the wrist, but just for the sake of showing you, I put it on the wrist. You can keep it kind of low-key like this color too, but I'm building up the intensity of the color quite a bit for the sake of visibility. This will be a really good bruise if you're being a zombie for Halloween. You get a really good visual effect from that. And I'll be actually drawing in some veining afterwards to show you how that would look as a zombie too. So yeah, I'm just kind of building up the color, looking at the reference picture, making sure it looks as close as possible. And as I'm stippling the colors on, just kind of twisting the sponge at the same time to make sure that it's all blended in. And you can just straight stipple on some color if you want to add a little bit of depth to it as well, without the blending. Just playing around with it, adding my finishing touches. Adding in a little bit of blue because I felt it could use a little bit more color to it. Now, like I said, I'm just taking that same dark red color we were using and using a really fine tip brush and just kind of creating some wiggles to look like veining. And you can reference this pictures of the internet as well if you need a little bit of reference. Sometimes it's hard just to visualize what it looks like. And you can paint over your existing veins too to make them look like they've become this purple shade too. And I had done this effect as well, showing you how to do it with eyeshadows, but the video is just gone. So I have a picture here just to show you how that looks, basically using the same techniques, but I used a brush and just stipple it with a brush instead of a sponge. Okay, so now I'm going to show you two different types of cuts. They're both with the Makeup Forever Plasto Wax in Natural. And I'm just taking that with a palette knife and kind of working the wax between my fingers to warm it up, working them into little worms, and then placing them onto the skin and then just flattening it out with a palette knife. This is a really nice product because you have a lot of work time. It doesn't necessarily dry, so you can kind of work with it until it looks how you like it. If you're going to be wearing this effect, I don't recommend putting it on areas that have high mobility because the wax will just kind of separate and come apart. So it's best for spots like your forehead or things like that where it's flush and doesn't move very much. And really just take your time, making sure it looks nice and flush to the skin, as realistic as possible, using a reference picture if you need as well. If you wanted to have a more long-lasting effect, you could use medical grade silicone. It's a 3rd degree silicone product, and you can use that. It's just a little bit trickier because you have only about 6 to 8 minutes to use it before it dries. But it's really nice for in areas where you need to move your arm or something and you need the effect to stick. It'll definitely stay with you. And if you were, say, putting this on an area like your neck where there's a little bit more skin texture, once you have the wax all placed where you like it, just make sure you take like a firm sponge or your palette knife and just make sure you add a little bit more of that texture back into the wax, or else it's going to look a little bit obvious that it's fake. One little tip to make it last a little bit longer is to take some liquid latex and a sponge, and you just stipple that right on top of the effect. You can do like about 3 to 5 layers of it, just letting it dry completely in between layers, and it'll kind of hold the effect on. You could also use spirit gum underneath the wax to make that stick to the skin even more. And that's really easily accessible product too with the spirit gum and the liquid latex. And the latex also adds a nice texture, nice skin texture. So now I'm going to show you just an easier scratch right next to it. This one you would just place down one worm and then you flatten it out as best as possible, leaving a little bit of a raised bump. Really just flatten it down. Making sure you blend those edges. And then you just take the edge of your palette knife and you're just going to draw a line right down the middle to create that cut effect. Nice and gently so you don't hurt your skin underneath. And then I'm just going to take my brush that I use for blood effects and Cinema Secret Stage Blood, and I'm just going to work the blood into the middle of the cut. And then you can use your same sponge from earlier just to add some redness around the cut with some more blood. And then just go back in with the blood if you've lost some of the effect. And then I'm just filling in a dark color into that cut to give it depth with the Krylon Rubber Mask Grease Paints. You can use just like a black and a red mixed. And then stippling the red onto the outside of the wound as well. And then I'm going to be filling that cut with the Ben Nye Thick Blood to give it sort of a scabbed effect. And then if you find that the latex is giving you too much shine, you can just take some translucent powder and stipple that on top. And there we have our 2 cuts. Thanks for watching!